This question comes from Barry Laffer in New York City. Berkshire owns about 94 million shares of Paramount Global as of the last published data. This asset-rich company has disappointed on recent quarterly earnings reports and just this week slashed its dividend by 80%. How do you see the streaming wars evolving, and do you still have conviction in your investment thesis? Is your investment thesis based on the company being an acquisition target or based on its fundamentals?
Yeah, and how would you like to manage my money for nothing? We are not in the business of giving stock advice to people, and people who don't know anything about stocks can make a lot of money doing that, and we don't think it's something we should give away. But I will say this, it's not good news when any company passes its dividend or cuts its dividend dramatically. And the streaming business is extremely interesting to watch because there's people love to use their eyeballs watching, being entertained on a screen in front of them or a phone or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of companies doing it, and you need fewer companies or you need higher prices. Well, you need higher prices or it doesn't work. And you don't lock in people when you get them to join up for the streaming period when your serial runs. I mean, you keep them on for a while, but you can't lock them up. And we'll see what happens. I mean, I had a gasoline station when I was 21 or 22, and it's about 3 or 4 miles from here, and we had one competitor, and he determined our profit because we looked at his price every day, and if we cut the price, he'd match it, and we couldn't raise the price. And he did twice the gallonage, so he won. There's just basic business problems that you see with certain industries that you don't see with the other. Disney was unique in its animated, what it offered, in the 30s and 40s. And they wrote the stuff off in the first showing, and then they rejuvenated Snow White and put all these other people every 7 years, and that was fine. But this is a different world, and the eyeballs aren't going to increase dramatically, and the time they can spend it's not going to increase dramatically, and you got a bunch of companies that don't want to quit, and who knows what pricing does under that. But anybody tells you what they know what pricing will do in the future is kidding themselves. Charlie? Charlie's had a lot of experience, incidentally, with Hollywood. I mean, he used to, before I even met him.
I think the movie business is one tough business.
Yeah.
That's my view.
The talent will make the money, the agents will make the money, and if you've got a theater, the theaters are now doing 70% of the business that they did before the pandemic. And big hits, have enormous grosses, but you can't reduce the supply. People have only got so many hours in the day. They've only got 2 eyeballs, and they got more choice than ever before. And they've got stuff that's cheaper that offers them the same experience, and some of them like the experience, particularly the big hits of going. But it isn't like you can double the number of people or double the eyeballs or anything like that. And you've got a lot of people. The talent will always get paid. And when you essentially are packaging that talent one way or another, and you need to get higher prices, and you've got a lot of strong companies that don't want to quit, that's an interesting equation.
If you think the movies are tough, try to invest in a New York show on a conventional stage. There they think it's a breach of faith in that business to let the person put up the money ever get any money back.
Yeah, well, Charlie saw a lot of that, actually.
I don't like those businesses.
Tell them what happened on Cleopatra, Charlie. It's a business that everybody's tempted to go. They love the idea of going in, and they get a certain amount of psychic income, but
I never owned any racehorses either.
Well, my father-in-law and I used to talk about claiming a horse at Exarban, but we never quite got around to it. And we had a lot of fun going to the track together. Okay, section 6.
Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Hayes, and I'm a high schooler from Iowa. You said earlier today that transitioning to renewable energy has the people and capital to support it. So with enough investment in renewables, the development of energy storage technology to soon meet Iowa's energy needs, and support from the government system through Inflation Reduction Act funding, Why hasn't Berkshire Hathaway Energy truly invested in the future by accelerating retirement plans for the coal plants, which have high operating costs and are currently Iowa's biggest carbon polluter and will continue to be until they're finally retired in 2049, which is too late to be curbing emissions according to the IPCC?
Yeah, it's very interesting. We in Iowa, we have actually produced more wind energy than is used, the total amount of energy used by our customers, but it's not producible 24 hours a day necessarily. So there's problems. And incidentally, in Iowa, a significant majority of counties welcome us when we come around and want to put in wind, and some don't want it. I mean, there's a not in my backyard someplace. There's other places where they love the money they get from a small plot of ground, and people they like the taxes that are paid. But I would say that if there's one state in the union that stands out in the development, it's Iowa. But what's also interesting in Iowa is that we have one other major company. There's always loads of little co-ops and all kinds of things that sell electricity. But we have one major competitor, and our prices are significantly lower. And as a matter of fact, we are now in the Omaha Public Power District, and 3 miles or 4 miles away, we're selling electricity in Iowa. And we are selling it cheaper, even though public power was invented in Nebraska and has been, I think it's George Norris did it back in the 1930s. And Nebraska's resisted, to some extent, wind power more than Iowa, but like I say, our competitor or alternate source hasn't really pursued it the way we have. But I would say that our record in wind and solar has not been topped by any utility in the United States. And of course, it's been aided by the fact that most utilities pay out 70 or 80% of earnings in dividends. And we haven't taken a common dividend out of, we had a little tiny preferred, we haven't taken a common dividend out of it. For 20 years, we reinvested, I don't know how many billion. That's the reason why the earnings have gone from 200 million to 4 billion, but we're not earning a higher rate of return on capital than we were when we started. We just put way more capital into the business as we went along, kept reinvesting the capital. So I wish Greg were here to tell you more details about it, but I would say that we'd really put up Berkshire Hathaway Energy's record against any utility in the United States. Charlie, you've watched it.
Well, I have, and I'm not personally at all sure how bad the global warming is going to be. I don't think anybody knows for sure whether the seas are going to rise 2 inches or 20 feet. And so I think there's a lot of false claims here in a world where much is not known.
Yeah, Wyoming, there is a lot of wind in Wyoming, and we are building transmission lines that extend out through the West. But it was World War II, and they told us to do it. And we had a czar in Washington that could say, just get it done, like they said to Henry Kaiser on building ships. You can't believe how far we would be down from where we are. But we've got the money, we've got the know-how, and we do spend about, this year, our depreciation in our utility company is on the order of $4 billion. And we spend maybe $3 billion additional to that, so maybe we spend $7 billion. And there are very few companies in the utility industry that are spending, that percentage of their depreciation. But we'd love to be spending more. But there are people all over that don't want the pipeline to go through there, or they don't want the tower, whatever it may be. And that is the problem of a democracy. And even, as I mentioned, within Iowa, you've got a great many counties that, great majority of the counties, I think, but welcome the wind power, and you've got some counties that don't like it. And we're obviously going to work with the ones that want to work with us. We do not have the ability to go in and tell anybody what to do on that. And there's a Public Utility Commission in every state that basically governs what we earn on it, what we do, and that's the way the industry is developed. And that's not bad, unless you get into things that in effect, extend. They're part of a countrywide system rather than a statewide system.
I think also that even if we weren't worried about global warming, it would make sense to shift to renewables to conserve our hydrocarbons. There's certain things hydrocarbons can do that nothing else can do, and there are only so much of them there. Why not be cautious in conserving them?
And the cost, they've gotten so much more efficient too. I mean, the wind stuff. I mean, if you look at what we're doing now, those towers are way more efficient. But there's a lot of people that are talking that they're talking about things that can't be done, and then
there's a lot of nonsense in this field.
Yeah.
If you like nonsense, this is the field for you.
No. Well, we're in the field, so
I know.